Hey guys, this is Nick and welcome to your Linux and open source news for the first half of November 2020. This time we've got Ubuntu addressing a very nasty bug, KDE firing on all cylinders with Plasma Mobile and their own edition of the PinePhone, a big System76 sale, and some new releases of very good stuff for Linux gaming. Let's dive in right after this. This video is sponsored by Linode. Founded in 2003, Linode is the largest independent cloud service provider built on open source. If it runs on Linux, it runs on Linode. Multiple distros are available, including Ubuntu, CentOS, Alpine, and of course Arch. The multiple server configurations make any app or service flexible and scalable to host a website, set up your own personal VPN, create a Nextcloud instance, host a game server, and more. Linode offers 24/7 support any day of the year, by phone or support ticket, regardless of your plan size. The simple pricing with monthly caps ensures that there is no hidden fees, and a generous monthly transfer is built in, which means there is no large bill surprises like you get from AWS or Azure. Sign up today at linode.com/linuxexperiment to get your $100 in Linux server credits. The link is in the description. Oh, and before I forget, in addition to having great written documentation, Linode also just started their own YouTube channel where you can check out video tutorials and guides, information on Linux cloud computing, and guest appearances from various experts. Check them out at youtube.com/linode. Okay, let's start with the Linux news, and Ubuntu fixed a nasty series of bugs that allowed standard users to become root in their latest LTS, Ubuntu 20.04. With just a few terminal commands, a standard user could create an admin account for themselves and get full access to the system. Basically, the use of the various commands triggered a reboot and the opening of the OEM user creation window that lets you create an admin account immediately. The vulnerability was due to specific Ubuntu code in the account service and also to how GDM handles that service. These bugs have been patched now, so I'd advise anyone using that Ubuntu LTS to do their updates. Ubuntu also published a blog post with the most popular snaps that various distributions use. They compared usage statistics between Arch Linux, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, Manjaro, and Ubuntu, and it's interesting to see how users of various distros don't use the same software. Debian users, for example, are more focused on server and coding, with Postman, VS Code, or Certbot being the top snaps, while Manjaro or Arch users use mostly entertainment and productivity apps like Skype, Spotify, Discord, or Zoom. Generally though, the top snaps seem to be Spotify and VS Code, so nothing specific to the Snap Store here, since both of these are available on FlatHub as well. Now on to some open source news. And the Free Software Foundation wants to update its list of high-priority projects. That list hasn't evolved since 2017, but they want people to give them feedback on what should be considered high priority in terms of free software for the years to come. They already are highlighting a free phone operating system, more free drivers and firmwares, real-time voice and video chats, an intelligent personal assistant, and more free software adoption by governments, among other things. Please keep in mind that the FSF doesn't necessarily invest in said projects, they just try to call some attention to what they think is needed, so it's mostly in the "I wish I had a pony" territory, but if you have some ideas on what our open source systems are missing, don't hesitate to let them know. Linux Mint added Chromium back to their repos as a regular package. Mint had lost easy access to Chromium when Ubuntu transitioned it to a snap package, since Mint refused to ship any snaps or snapd and even prevented its installation. They are now fixing that by providing a Chromium deb package in their own repositories. Ubuntu had moved to the snap format to avoid having to build packages for multiple architectures on multiple versions of Ubuntu, but Mint shouldn't run into that issue. In my opinion, they took a very extremist stance by completely disabling access to snaps, and they took way too much time to provide an alternative solution, but you might feel differently depending on your position on snaps. Dell is working on a hardware privacy driver for the Linux kernel. Beginning with their 2021 laptop lineup, they'll ship physical buttons to disable the mic and the camera, and since Dell ships some laptops with Linux pre-installed, they're also working on the necessary driver to handle these switches. The driver will handle the status LEDs linked to these buttons, and will allow Linux systems to track the status of these controls. It also seems they are working on a driver that would allow to reduce the viewing angles on the display, something that traditionally could be achieved by applying a physical privacy filter to your laptop screen. It's nice to see Dell actually working on the Linux kernel to better support their various new devices. In a move that will probably make some people mad for no well-explained reason, Dolphin, the KDE file browser, will add opt-in telemetry. Just like you can enable anonymized data collection on the whole of the Plasma desktop if you like, to help the team improve where it matters, Dolphin will allow users to share some information as well, like its own version and the queued version it's using, some distro information, the number of screens, how many times Dolphin is started, and other telemetry tidbits. This will be opt-in, so no worries if you don't want to send anything to the KDE team, you don't have to touch any specific switches, it's disabled by default. I would have liked to see this integrated directly into the Plasma desktop settings instead of Dolphin-specific settings, though, so that if more apps decide to offer the option, you can manage all the telemetry you allow or disable from one place. A member of the KDE team published a very interesting article on the Wayland migration, and it has interesting insight. It also explains where KDE is, at least for 5.20, in terms of Wayland improvements. Basically, what it seems to boil down to is, it takes time, because the protocol and its APIs are still relatively young and immature, Wayland is not compatible with the way x.org did things, and Wayland doesn't cover everything that x.org did. Generally, it's easy to assume that moving from x.org to Wayland should be done by now, but there are plenty of issues that remain. Wayland doesn't have very much in common with x.org, and doesn't aim to re-implement everything that x.org did before, like some hardware management. I still think Wayland is the future for the Linux desktop, but the KDE approach is the right one. Move slowly until everything is at least at feature parity. Moving on to application news, Getting Things GNOME is working on fixing the biggest annoyance people had with it after its complete redesign using JDK 3, and that's the ability to sync your tasks. Well, now it has a CalDAV backend, which should let it sync tasks to Nextcloud, for example, or Google Tasks. It's not merged in the main code branch yet, as they're waiting for more testing, but you shouldn't have to wait too much longer to get a very good to-do list and project management application that can sync to multiple devices. They're also working on improving performance for people who have a lot of tasks, although they haven't completely rooted out the issue yet. There's also a bunch more improvements on the way, take a look at the blog post in the description to know more. KDE is working on a redesign of their system monitor, and it looks great. It uses nice charts and graphs to let you get a bird's eye view of how your system is running, and it uses unified code with the System Monitor Plasma widgets, so you can customize it as much as you can with these little graphs. The various pages of the application have also been redesigned to let you quickly switch between all your running applications, processes, your computer's CPU, memory, and network usage history, and an overview page. You can of course also create your own pages to let you get all the info you need in one click. They plan to include it for Plasma 5.21, so it's only got a few more months to go before it can be in most users' hands. Moving on to some hardware news, an OpenRazor got a new release. If you don't know about it, it's a collection of drivers to use your Razer gear on Linux. This new release supports notably the 2020 Razer Blade Advanced, Base and Stealth, and a lot of Razer mice and keyboards. On its own, it's just drivers to make use of all the features of your laptop, mouse or keyboard, but you can add the polychromatic UI, which is a graphical user interface that lets you access these settings, including all these pesky RGB lights if you're a fan of these. If you're using Razer gear on Linux and you're not using that UI, you're probably not using that hardware to its best potential, so check the project out. Now, if you're looking for a device shipping with Linux by default, System76 has a sale running until January the 4th. It seems to impact most of their laptops and desktops, as well as some accessories. While the discounts aren't all that impressive, from $50 to $150 depending on the device, it's still a good opportunity to try out a fully supported Linux PC, especially on the desktop side with the Thelio line, which is custom built by System76 and not based on generic designs like their laptops are. System76 seems to be moving to become the Apple of the Linux ecosystem, but in the good sense, in which that they designed the software with Pop! OS and the hardware on the Thelio lines. They're also working on their own keyboards and on their own designs for their laptop. Yet more news on the KDE side as they announced their version of the PinePhone, the KDE Community Edition. It's the latest version of that mobile device and runs KDE Plasma Mobile, obviously. It sports a KDE logo on the back and everything that the PinePhone already had in terms of hardware. Plasma Mobile seems to be moving quite fast, just like Phosh, the mobile implementation of GNOME Shell, and both seem to advance a bit faster than Lomiri, formerly known as Ubuntu Touch. I have yet to try Plasma Mobile on my PinePhone, but I'll give it a shot. For those interested, this version of the PinePhone will be open to pre-orders in December. And let's complete this round of news by gaming news. VK-D3D Proton, the VK-D3D fork made to work specifically with Proton, has seen a new release, version 2.0. It now supports DirectX 12 feature level 12 and shader model 6, and makes a bunch of games work in DirectX 12 mode, including Resident Evil 2 and 3, Metro Exodus, Horizon Zero Dawn, Control, Death Stranding, or Monster Hunter World. This VK-D3D fork serves as the DirectX 12 implementation in Proton, so expect to see it shipping in a Proton version soon. Wine 5.21 was also released. It converted more libraries to the PE format, added more fixes to windowless rich edits, and updated time zone code. It also fixes 24 bugs, including for League of Legends and Riot Games anti-cheat, Path of Exile, Microsoft Flight Simulator, GOG Galaxy, Street Fighter V, or World of Warcraft. Proton 5.13-2 is now available with a bunch of fixes. It also includes version 2.0 of VK-D3D Proton, which we just talked about. With that next release, you'll get fixes for Risk of Rain 2, Killer Instinct, games not launching with Uplay Connect or Origin after updating, Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, Warhammer 40k Inquisitor, and Middle-earth Shadow of War. It should be noted that using VK-D3D Proton brings a few issues, especially the fact that controller hot plugging doesn't work, and Vulkan layers like VK Basalt or Mango Herd won't start. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't hesitate to like or dislike if you didn't. You can also subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to get more videos like this. If you really want to help support the channel, you can also join my amazing Patreon subscribers and YouTube members and get access to a monthly Patreon cast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover. Check them out in the links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!